Hey everybody, this is Slugger, and I had a few more thoughts I wanted to share about Dino Island. First off, a big thank you if you've already gone and checked out the video I made earlier this week. A ton of effort went into that one, and hopefully it lived up to the expectations. I also want to give a thank you to Brett for once again coming through with the artwork here. I wanted to expand the Slugometer screen with a pros and cons list, and I think the green and red energy crystals that we came up with really fit the bill and are quite thematic. There were also a couple of other pieces of artwork, such as the It Wouldn't Be an Adventurer set without guns belt buckle, which will probably see a lot of use coming up in the Orient Expedition series. Speaking of which, the artwork teased at the very end is just the tip of the iceberg of what we've got planned, and I can't wait to start sharing it. Even though the script for the video ended up being over 8 pages long, there were still some things I had to leave on the cutting room floor. I couldn't quite fit everything into it, and I had this weird problem where I had about 3 to 5 paragraphs worth of things to say about each individual set, which on its own is just not enough, so they had to be combined together into one large video. But then on top of that, I had a few extra things that I wanted to mention as well, but it really bloated the script and distracted from what the video was supposed to be about, which is a look at all the sets that came out for the Dino Island sub-theme. So let's take a look at some of these topics right now. First off, I want to mention prototype dinosaurs. We can actually see a ton of these pop up in different pieces of LEGO media. This one right here is really pronounced. You can even see the texture indicative of 3D printing. This is probably what we're looking at here, honestly. Before it was a consumer-grade product like it is now, 3D printing was something that large businesses, especially in the toy industry, could use to prototype pieces. There are also some shots of the T-Rex in a prototype form as well too, though I have to say with these larger dinosaurs, the function appears to be the same. This is just an early rendition of the whole thing that we ended up receiving, no noticeable differences beyond the texture. However, the same cannot be said about the pteranodons, which I learned from the comment section aren't actually dinosaurs, they are flying reptiles. I think my lack of dinosaur knowledge is really showing through sometimes in this video, but alas. Anyways, just like with Rock Raiders and LEGO Star Wars box art from 1999, we can actually see various prototype dinosaurs appear on the front box art for Dino Island. In particular, if we look at the ones that include pteranodons, we can actually see a noticeable difference in the way that the clips are constructed for the feet, and it also appears that there are clips for the hands as well. I haven't seen any instances of these clip hands being used to hold a LEGO bar or something like that in the alternate builds or in other pieces of LEGO media. So I can't quite be sure if they knew they were going to be changing those hands out to be the non-functional kind that we received in the final product, much in the same way that they knew the roll cage anchors for the Rock Raiders roll cages were going to be different, so they made sure not to use those clip pieces in any of the alternate builds, because they knew that part was going to be replaced later on. So I can't tell if it's the same sort of thing happening here, or if they just determined that this functionality that was intended was not something that would hold up to the rigors of play. Whatever the case, it is a little disappointing that they weren't able to come up with a better solution than what we received in the end, because I feel the pteranodons don't quite live up to the other dinosaurs included in the sets. The feet clips especially are tough to utilize. There's very little functionality there, and the non-movable wings don't really add to anything, so having clip hands might have been able to elevate the design. But it seems it must have come at the cost of durability. I featured it a couple of times in the Dino Island video, but there was a commercial that came out in 2000 with these animated dinosaurs and a close-up look at some of the Dino Island sets. I wanted to talk about this commercial for a few moments because I noticed some interesting incongruities within it. Firstly, this shot was kind of interesting, where they just kind of removed the bridge and shoved the two base plates up against each other. It doesn't really have a great look to it in person. I found this segment of the commercial to be rather interesting. Pippin Reed is up on the arm of the catapult, kind of using it as a camera boom, moving it from side to side and up and down, but the piece itself, or the mechanism itself included in the set, doesn't have this functionality. It's just hardwired to launch up and down. It doesn't have the 4x4 turntable feature that seems to be in the video back here, so this has definitely been altered, probably just for the sake of the commercial. Here's a cool shot where we can see the interplay between the sets sort of emphasized. I actually really like the idea of the transport barge coming up against the side of the Dino research compound there. I think that's a great little interplay between them, as well as the Dino Explorer behind the set there, and the potted plants all around. It's just great. It's a great aesthetic. I love this. Now here we go. These kids got to actually play with prototype dinosaurs. Here it is, clear as day, a pteranodon with the clip hands and the old style clip feet as well. I just think this is awesome. What I will say though is that there are some interesting differences in the net trap, this net launching trap here. You'll notice that they've removed a great deal of the parts from the side here, the foliage and the brown slope pieces, and there's also an odd appearance of a green 2x2 slope behind the whole contraption. I'm not sure as to the purpose of that piece, and it's not something that's featured in the final set. And so I'm not sure where it came from. I'm not sure if this is something that was originally supposed to be part of the set, or was just something altered to make the feature work better for the commercial. I think that's the reason why the foliage along the side here has been removed. It increases the visibility of the play feature. But this green slope, it isn't included in other sets within Dino Island, so I'm just not sure why it's there. In this shot with the island hopper, you can actually see that it's been removed, and the foliage and the brown slope pieces are back. So they were definitely monkeying around a little bit behind the scenes to make these sets pop out a little bit more. Also, along the bottom of the island hopper here is a little hook. Seems to be to pick up the net that has dropped upon the Triceratops there. So I think it's just a couple of pieces here, and I've reconstructed it here on my island hopper to what I can tell it must have looked like. Lastly, I wanted to point out that the Tyrannosaurus Rex here is also a prototype dinosaur. You can see the solid studs on the back here, whereas the model we received had hollow studs. I'm pretty sure the head mold is also a prototype there, but I can't quite tell from the fidelity of the video. Still a really cool commercial, and I think it gives us an unprecedented amount of insight into the development of Dino Island. So looking at the sets again here, a few people wanted me to show off the zip line that runs between the sections of the research compounds, and here you go. These LEGO zip lines have never really been great play features in my eye, and even though I briefly mentioned it, I guess I didn't show a video of it happening, so here it is again. Honestly, I find this play feature to be more hassle than it's worth, because the lower connection point of the zipline is actually built into the side of this generator here, and means that you can't really remove the zipline easily. You have to just kind of wrap it up and store it in a crate or something, so not great. Since we're on the Dino Research Compound anyways, I might as well mention the final count of how many brown 2x2 bricks are included in this set. It's 51, which is pretty astronomically high. I guess I'll also mention that LEGO Racers 2 featured a great number of Dino Island sets within it, and some of the cars that we see especially are featured in that game as well. Not just the Island Racer, but other vehicles like the one included in this set, as well as the T-Rex Transport. In addition, the Island Racer itself was featured in LEGO Island 2 as a vehicle that the player could drive around. Video game integration is really not my forte. I don't have a huge wealth of knowledge of LEGO video games, so if I miss that sort of stuff, I appreciate people pointing it out, though at the same time it's not something that interests me especially, and hopefully this isn't too much of a controversial take, because I've played both of these games before, but I find them both to be vastly inferior to the games that preceded them. especially in the case of Lego Island 2. Let's talk about alternate builds, because Dino Island is one of the few series that actually shows photograph instructions for some sections of these alternate builds within the instruction booklets themselves. This was something that we could also see in Harry Potter as well, in those early waves. I'd imagine this is due to parents complaining about the lack of instructions for the models on the back of the sets, which was sort of tacitly confirmed by a former LEGO employee. So for a short time, this was the LEGO Group's solution, taking some photos of some of the steps that led to building these alternate builds. It's definitely not a perfect solution, and ultimately they just would do away with alternate builds entirely, but it is appreciated in this context, and I was able to whip together a few of these. I don't really intend on going in depth with the alternate builds here, and honestly, I think that sort of mentality is going to carry over into the Orient Expedition series. We'll see. There are a few there that I'm interested in, but I think by and large, they don't have as much canonical merit, I find, compared to, let's say, the alternate builds from Rock Raiders, where they still feel like space mining vehicles. A lot of the ones that I see in Adventurers in general just kind of feel like offshoots of what would otherwise be a set, whereas like if I compare to any of the old space themes, like we'll take Spyrius for example too, they still feel spacey and they look like they almost could be sets. Some of them are better than the set that they're built from, in my opinion, whereas with the Adventurers alternate builds, I don't find that same sort of magic rekindled there, and I just find them inherently a little less interesting. It adds a ton of production time to any video to have to go through and build the alternate build, take photographs of it, disassemble it, build the next alternate build, take photos of it, and so on, right? And then have to write the script around it as well, too. If it's all just for the purpose of me ultimately saying, and here is another truck, or here is a weird-looking helicopter thing, and not really having any sort of love or passion behind it, I kind of see it as ultimately pointless, so I kind of avoided it here with Adventurers. I will talk about alternate builds when I find them interesting, or there is some other reason I feel that it's necessary to talk about them. Ultimately, they do add value, and they are important, and you never know, maybe I'll come back and go through all of the alternate builds for Dino Island. Obviously, too, there were other LEGO Dinosaurs that came out just the following year, and I will be talking about these in a full video eventually. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but I'm looking forward to it. These can be mixed and matched with your Dino Island sets, although you might find the scale to be slightly off with some of the dinosaurs. Likewise, LEGO Studios is also a theme I want to dive into more in the future. I'm looking forward to getting into that, but I don't know if I'm going to dive into it right now. I think it's worthwhile to mention that Dino Island was the last Adventurer sub-theme released before the 3-year-long hiatus that led to Orient Expedition. In that time, LEGO of course was evolving behind the scenes, and I think Orient Expedition is going to really show the process and the product of that evolution. I'm looking forward to diving into that series, of course, but I'm feeling a little bit of melancholy. After finishing up Dino Island here, I'm kind of remorseful to put these sets away. Ultimately, what's going to happen is I'm going to disassemble them and put them back into their boxes and store them up. So I wanted to maybe revisit the island one more time here together and take a look at these sets one last time. There is one thing I'll mention that I just couldn't quite fit into the script anywhere, and it's this tail fin for the island hopper. I bought a separate little Jack Stone plane because it has a red colored version of the tail fin, and I've got to say I really think this improves the look of the island hopper. It's already a 3-slug set, right? It's already top tiered, top billing, one of my favorite all-time Adventurer sets, but I think just the small little color change adds a little bit more of a pop of excitement to the tail end of the island hopper, so I'd recommend it if you can make that part alteration. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you've enjoyed or otherwise picked up something insightful from this video or the previous one as well. I had a lot of fun making them, and I look forward to making more. I've been your host, RR Slugger, and I'll see you next time for another video.